Welcome to the Sisters of the Shire Podcast, your haven for all things Tolkien. Today we are continuing the last section after the Silmarillion, which is called Of the Rings of Power and the Third Age. So if you're joining us for the first time, you might want to begin your listening adventure at episode 1 or episode 0 if you want to know me and Ashley better, to avoid any confusion, as the Silmarillion is pretty confusing.
I'm Ashley, and I will be your guide. Whether you're a Silmarillion veteran like me or a brand new Silmarillion apprentice like my amazing co-host Abby, it is our quest to make Tolkien's wonderful stories enjoyable and easy to understand and just nerd out in the process.
Yes, and together we'll journey throughout the many intricate stories and tales of Tolkien's Middle-earth. Let's go!
Let's go! How are you, Abby?
Oofy doofy. Okay, so this has been my my quote for the past week from Sebastian from Little Mermaid, when he goes, "My nerves are shot." Or what's the one from Pride and Prejudice where she's like, "Mr. Bennet, you have no consideration.
No compassion for my poor nerves." On the contrary, Mrs. Bennet, they've been my dear companions these last blah, blah, blah years.
Yeah. Yes.
I love Mr. Bennet.
My nerves they're like fried this past week.
Yep.
Not like...
I feel that.
Okay, so I'll give you a really fast rundown. This is, First of all, this is like 2 or 3 days ago, and this was all in one day. So I have a little 2-year-old, and he is in that exploratory 2-year-old stage where they're not doing things on purpose. They're just curious and doing things that they're like, "Oh, I didn't know this was something I was not supposed to do." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're just learning. But I'm like losing hair, like stress. Anyway, this was all in one day where I was getting him out of his car seat, and he jumps out of his car seat. Like, I buckled him, and he jumps out of this car seat, and he jumps to the other side of the car, which I cannot reach because his car seat is in the middle of the car. And so I can't go over. So I have to walk around the car. And so I walk around, and he jumps into the front seat when I'm trying to go around. It's like a fun game.
What a fun game.
I know.
What a fun game that I'm sure you had plenty of time for and patience.
Yes. And it was like 95 degrees outside, and I'm like, okay. And I run to the front seat to witness him putting change, like coins, in our CD player of the car.
Wow. I've never once.
So that doesn't work anymore. I did save my yellow Jack Johnson CD out of it, though, because I was like, no. Ooh. And I like pulled it out really fast. But
Banana pancakes, gotta save it.
I know. That's a no skip CD, by the way. Anyway, so that doesn't work anymore. So then I was like, and so I can't get mad at him because he wasn't like, "I'm going to do this to ruin Mom's day." It was like, I wonder what this does. And I'm like, So I pulled him inside, and then I was like, okay, let's have lunch. I'm hungry. Maybe it'll feel a little better if I eat. So I put stuff on a plate, and I turned to go to put it in the microwave, and I do the microwave, turn it on. I turn around. He had, in that time, climbed up, pushed our bench from our table next to our kitchen island, climbed up onto our kitchen island, went and found a big bottle of hand sanitizer, the Bath and Body Works expensive kind, unscrewed the top, like did not open it, like unscrewed the top, and was pouring it on himself and like washing himself like he would in the shower or the bath. And I'm like,
And what did he smell like for the rest of the day? What scent was it?
He smelled like white or gardenia or something. It smelled really good. But I was like, when you have like a whole container of it, It's a little
Right.
overkill. Which also, side note, cleaning up liquid soap, a puddle of liquid soap on a
Yes, it is
flat
the worst.
surface is a joke. That is not possible. I don't know who can do that. Then
how do I clean my cleaning?
Yeah, it's just making more clean. I clean it all up, and then I like put him down for a nap, and then like later that night I'm making dinner and he comes up to me while I'm like at the stove, and his back and his like butt and legs are like soaked, right? And I'm like,
Okay.
what? Fell into the toilet.
Oh.
And I'm like, because it was like he was trying to sit
How
on the
did you
toilet.
figure that out?
He was trying to sit on the toilet, but he had all his clothes on and his diaper on. And he just like sat in it. He's so small still that he just like fell into it, like sitting on it. And he got back out. And I knew that was what happened because there was like a trail of water from the
Okay.
bathroom.
Good job, Sherlock.
So I was like, okay. So I put him in the shower.
Sure.
In the shower, and my friend comes over like right when I do that. And I like putting my kids in the shower because like I don't like, it's a little bit more safe for me if I have to walk away. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I walked away for a second, and I feel pretty confident with him being in the shower because I was like, okay, you're going to be okay for like 2 minutes while I walk away to go help my friend who was at the door. So I like talk to my friend at the door, and I hear him sobbing in the bathroom. So I run to the bathroom, and he had...
Did he put soap in his eyes or something?
Pooped
Oh.
so much everywhere, like in the shower. And I was like, did an adult man come in here and do this? Because this is did a bear come in here? I was like, what is happening? There's so much. And so I get him out and I like clean him up, and the shower's like, so I'm cleaning the shower, right? I'm like scrubbing the shower, cleaning everything up, picking up handfuls, and like cleaning it up. And I like am on my hands and knees because it's a shower, so it's not like, you know, it doesn't have a bathtub in it. It's like a walk-in shower. So I'm like on my hands and knees scrubbing,
Right.
and he's next to me naked on the floor, like in the bathroom, and I just hear this, "Oh, mama! Oh, mama!" And I'm like, "What?" And I like look, and he is peeing all over the floor, and I'm just like, I just like stare at him, and I'm like, "You're joking. You are joking to me right now." So,
Oh my gosh.
anyway,
I'm crying.
how was your day?
I can't top that. That's for sure. Oh my god.
Oh, and then to top it all off, that's nothing to do with my toddler. I smashed my daughter's hand in the car door yesterday, and I broke her finger.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's why I said,
Just killing it at this mom life.
Yep.
Killing it.
Yep. She was trying to show her brother that she could do a trick, and I didn't know what she was doing. And I was getting my baby out of his car seat in the back seat, and she was sticking her fingers in the door hinge of the car door, and I shut the door.
Lizzie does that sometimes, and I'm like, "You're asking for trouble.
Tell her
Stop putting your hand
I will
there."
send a picture to her of Luna's hand and be like, "This is what happens." I will scare
She's probably
tactics
closed her own hand in the car because she has this thing where she wants to close it herself. She'll like kind of get in her seat and then she'll reach to close the door. But in order to reach for it, she puts her hand in like the hinge.
No.
And then so she does it to herself, which is like even more sad.
No. Anyway, so that
She's
happened.
learned, but
yes, and then really, really fast. That happened yesterday, and it happened in a Joanne's parking lot. And I like ran into Joanne. So I had all 3 kids with me, and I was holding my baby in my arms, and I was trying to hold a Luna whose hand was bleeding everywhere. And we ran into Joanne's, and I'm like asking this poor, sweet, like teenager employee girl. I was like, "Can you please help me? I just need a Band-Aid. There's nothing on the company, like it wasn't anywhere on your property or whatever, but I just need a Band-Aid." And she's like, so she bought bandages with her own money this girl and gave it to Luna. And while I'm trying to comfort Luna, I had put my baby in a cart, and he's like almost 2.5, and he hates sitting in carts. So he like got out of it while I was, and he got out of the buckle, and he was standing up. And I said to my 9-year-old, I was like, hey, can you help me with him? And he thought that meant I'm going to move the cart. I should move the cart. And he pulled the cart, and little baby fell out of the cart. And so he's crying. My daughter's crying. I'm like, there's blood and tears and all this stuff. And I like had my purchase, like I went in there like to pick up what I was getting. And so I was like, can I just buy this right now? I need to go. And then she gave me her employee discount. So if you guys want an employee discount,
just show that your life is falling apart right in front of them, and they will just...
Yep.
Oh, man. I'm sorry, Abby.
Yep. So, like Sebastian says, my nerves are shot.
I could see that.
Yes.
Anyways, do you want to talk about some other cool stuff that's happening in Middle Earth?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So, how much do you remember of last week?
Well, we set up like maps of where everybody was, correct?
Right. Correct.
And then
we got to learn a bit more about Sauron.
How he's not pretty anymore.
Well, no, we went back in time.
So yes, we went back in time.
Yeah. So he's pretty, and he even puts on his pretty face to apologize to the Maiar Eonwë. He's like, I am so sorry for all of my actions, and I'm just so sorry. I don't know what came over me. So Eonwë's like, I totally get it, but in order to get like complete forgiveness, you need to go back to Valinor and talk to Manwë, because I don't have that authority. And Eonwë's like continuing to like relocate, we'll call it, the Eldar from Middle Earth after the War of Wrath. They're like, yeah, you can't stay here anymore. Let's go back to Valinor, and where we can keep an eye on you. And you come too, Sauron, you're coming too. And he's like, right behind you. No, psych, not. That was psych and not night.
Yeah.
And he went back into Middle Earth to hide until he can think of his next move. But I was thinking about this. Lizzie was on a Encanto kick this week, and we learned that Sauron's most lethal ability is his shapeshifting gift. And I'm like, Camilo from Encanto?
No, Camilo's a precious angel who all he wants to do is make people happy and smile.
I'm just saying, he chose one path, Sauron chose another. I'm just saying.
Yes.
So then like you said, we set up our new risk game board, since our Baleriand risk game board is outdated with the moving and shifting of everything after the War of Wrath. And we learned that the area in Osirian called... Do you remember what it was called?
Linden.
Begins with an L. Linden survived, and that it's now a coastal city. And within this city is also the Grey Havens, which many of the Eldar use to leave Middle Earth to sail to Valinor or Tol Eressëa, whatever they choose. And this area is ruled by High King...
Gil-galad.
Gil-galad, yeah. Gil-galad.
Gil-galad.
And
Gil-galad.
Well, that's actually how the Audible guy says it, and I'm like, what did you just say? It just takes me a second. So I say Gil-galad, but yeah, he says Gil-galad too. I don't know
the
difference is. And Elrond is also there hanging out, helping out. And then we have Eregion, which is where most of the Noldor elves that stayed in Middle Earth settled, including our man Celebrimbor, who's going to come up a lot today. Celebrimbor. And they were also close to the dwarf city of Khazad-dûm, aka Moria.
Which was, that was like the coolest to finally see it in Rings of Power. I was like,
in the light.
I know.
Yeah,
It
we're going to learn
so
a little bit about that today too. So they had actually a pretty mutually beneficial relationship with the dwarves and the elves of Eregion. And then all the other elves that aren't in Linden or Eregion just kind of wander around. Some of them settle as the Sylvan elves, which eventually are forming the realms of Lorien and Mirkwood. Or some are the kind of off-grid elves that are known as the Avari. They just kind of wander and keep to themselves. And then as far as the wandering ones. And then we have the Forgotten Men left on Middle Earth after the War of Wrath, who dwelt mainly in the south. Think of like the Southlanders from Rings of Power, or in the far east, like the Easterlings in the Lord of the Rings. And unfortunately, with no one around to really help them or guide them, because they're pretty pathetic, they were left very vulnerable.
Sad.
Ripe for the picking.
No.
Yeah.
So sad.
All right. Well, that's where we left things off last week. So this week, we're going to be filling in some holes that Tolkien left in the other parts of the Silmarillion and the Akalabeth. We're also going to be filling in a bit of the gaps between, like, before The Hobbit, which is, I find, like, really kind of interesting. Like, I wish I had known this before, like, so much earlier. But I also really feel like some of Hobbit. Yes, and the Lord of the Rings, yeah. But I also feel like some of Tolkien's writings, it really needs to be written as, like, remember those choose your own adventure books?
Which character are we going to follow today?
Yeah. Like, and then this battle happened. Want to learn more about it? Turn to chapter 6. Want to keep going with the story? Continue reading to the next paragraph.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's just all over the place. But, you know, gotta love Tolkien. So we're continuing our story of the
ADHD.
Maybe. So we're continuing our story of the Rings of Power and the Third Age, and we are going to hear about what happened to Sauron after he escaped back into Middle Earth after ditching Yonway. So now that the Valar are gone, you know, and they have Morgoth captive, Sauron's just like, okay, cool. You guys go back to Valinor. You guys stay over there. Middle Earth's fine. Just don't think about it anymore. We're Middle Earth's fine. I'm just gonna take it over and, you know, destroy the world.
Don't look over there.
Yeah. So he's now looking at what he has to work with. Remember, he has the Eldar, or the elves in Linden and Eregion mainly. And then he has the Forgotten Men to the south and east. And then, you know, we are going to tie it in a bit with Akalabeth, because they do mention that, you know, they do have random Numenorians that come to visit. That doesn't go super into detail, but just that, yeah, that's, you know, still happening. This is when they're just kind of visiting Middle Earth. Yeah.
This is in the past.
Yes. Quote, but for long he dissembled his mind and concealed the dark designs that he shaped in his heart. So he's plotting. What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? How am I gonna destroy everything? Quote, men he found the easiest to sway of all the people of the earth, but long he sought to persuade the elves to his service, for he knew that the firstborn had the greater power.
Okay. But they left.
So in other words,
have they left yet? They had not left yet.
They haven't left yet. So in other words, like, men might be the easiest to control. You know, they're basically they could be pawns, but elves are more like the other chess pieces. They have more abilities and they're more powerful, and they would be better weapons in his control. And remember, he's still in his fair and wise disguise. You know, he still looks pretty and he's still got his silver tongue. So with that working for him, he basically just kind of goes around amongst the elves, just kind of snooping around, looking for vulnerabilities, looking for anything that he might be able to take advantage of. And, you know, you might wonder if any of them were suspicious of this, like, really good looking stranger wandering among them. And it doesn't exactly say what made them suspicious, but the only two people that seem to be, like, red flag, this guy is up to no good, were Gil-galad and Elrond.
So there's a show that I really love a lot, and there's a arc, like a mini arc in it, that this girl, the main character, is dating a guy.
What's the show? You have to say what the show is.
It's 30 Rock.
Okay.
And she's dating this guy, and she is like weirded out because like everybody like loves him and like does like gives him free stuff and like tells him he's amazing and blah blah blah. But then she finds out it's because he's so handsome. Like everybody just like does everything for him because he's so charismatic and so handsome. Like he thinks that he can be a tennis coach because all of like the women and men love to like take lessons from him because they just want to be around him, but he's actually really, really bad at tennis.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, that sounds like, pretty accurate.
So she's like weirded out because she's like, he hasn't had anything, like everything's like handed to him. Like everybody trusts him. Everybody does everything for him because he's pretty.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's actually a very good analogy for Sauron. Yeah. And you know, like her, Gil-galad and Elrond are so wary of him that they don't even allow him to come into Lindon.
There's like big posters like, if you're this handsome, you can knock him in here.
Yes. Quote, only to Lindon he did not come, for Gil-galad and Elrond doubted him and his fair seeming. And though they knew not who in truth he was, they would not admit him to that land. So I'm curious, like, was it just that he was so good looking? Like, we can't have the all the girls going to him. We need to keep the playing field even. So let's just, make sure that guy isn't allowed here.
It's like Flynn Rider where they make all his posters like really ugly.
Yes. They just can't get my nose right.
That's their like getting after him. Like, this is what you get. We're gonna make all your posters ugly, keep you out.
Yes. Well, that worked for Lindon, but everywhere else Sauron went, even though Gil-galad and Elrond tried to warn others, like, hey, we just don't think this guy's up to any good, they actually welcomed him.
Oh, no.
For Sauron took to himself the name of Anatar, the Lord of Gifts.
Oh, he gets another name?
He gets another name. So, yeah. So he's like the Lord of Gifts. He's like an pretty Santa, but not.
He's flattering everyone, winning their favor, making everyone love him so that they won't suspect him of doing anything wrong.
Correct.
Oldest trick in the book.
Oh, yeah. And just wait till you hear what smooth talking he's about to do here, because he's about to lay it on thick.
The silver tongue.
The silver tongue. So Sauron, aka Anatar, starts talking to these other elves. Quote, alas, for the weakness of the great. Like, I can just see him going like, oh. For a mighty king is Gil-galad, and wise in all lore is Master Elrond, and yet they will not aid me in my labors. Like, can you believe it, guys?
Why do they like me?
Yeah.
I haven't done anything wrong.
But then, gets better. Can it be that they do not desire to see other lands become as blissful as their own? But wherefore should Middle-earth remain forever desolate and dark, whereas the elves could make it as fair as Erisea, maybe even as Valinor? And since you guys have not returned thither, as you might, I perceive you love this Middle-earth, as do I. Is it not then our task to labor together for its enrichment and for the raising of all the elven kindreds that wander here untaught to the height of that power and knowledge which those who have who are beyond the sea? So in other words, like, Gil-galad and Elrond are cool and all, but those guys they won't let me help make Middle-earth as awesome as it could be. I mean, I love Middle-earth. You love Middle-earth. Wouldn't it be great if it was as awesome as, like, Valinor?
I just want him to have like campaign posters for himself.
Make Middle Earth great again.
Yes, make Middle Earth. Oh, I thought it was make Middle Earth more goth. That was it.
Oh yeah. Well, this is when he's pretending to be good.
Less goth.
Less goth. Yes, I like it. I like it. So this sales pitch, he just knows exactly what to say. And it hits right on target for these elves. Because in Eregion, firstly, remember, they are Noldor elves. And if you remember way back when, Noldor elves were known for being craftsmen. Think of like Fëanor, who crafted all the things. And they're just always looking to improve their skills. And what better teacher to help them do that than Anatar, aka Sauron? He knows a lot of stuff.
Of course. He's so smart.
So smart. And, also these elves are suffering from a major case of what I can only describe as like FOMO, like fear of missing out, because they love being in Middle Earth and they did want to stay, but they're like, we just really miss Tol Eressëa and Pelennor. We can't decide. We were staying, but we just really miss it. Did we make the right decision? I wish we could have a bit of that here. And, quote, therefore they hearkened to Sauron, and they learned of him many things, for his knowledge was great. Imagine that.
Teach us,
Maiar, actually. Maiar actually knows stuff.
Yeah. And didn't just leave them for nothing, like the Forgotten Men was supposed to have, help. So now that Sauron is in tight with the elves of Eregion, they all are all, they have nicknames for each other. They are just really close. What better way to bond as friends than to do a group project together? Of course.
Of course. Quote, and they took thought and they made rings of power. But Sauron guided their labors, and he was aware of all that they did, for his desire was to set a bond upon the elves and to bring them under his vigilance. So, okay, just keep an open mind with this because it's a different narrative than you probably had in your brain. It's a different narrative that I had in my brain, but just keep an open mind. So they're after some thought, let's think about how we can do a thing together. What's a good group project? Let's all have a craft night and make rings together. And then, Sauron, he's like, you know what? I know how to make rings so good. I'll be the project leader and I'll just kind of help you a little bit with all of your projects. Isn't that so nice of him? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Nice. Oh, he's so thoughtful. He also brought a cheese board.
And I just love cheese, though. He gets me. He gets me.
I'll bring the charcuterie.
Quote, now the elves made many rings, but secretly Sauron made one ring to rule all the others, and their power was bound up with it, to be subject wholly to it, and to last only so long as it too should last. And much of the strength and will of Sauron passed into that one ring. For the power of the elven rings was very great, and that which should govern them must be a thing of surpassing potency. And Sauron forged it in the mountain of fire, in the land of shadow. And while he wore the one ring, he could perceive all the things that were done by means of the lesser rings, and he could see and govern the very thoughts of those that wore them.
So his ring is linked to all the other ones?
Correct.
So, interesting.
Yes, not quite what we thought.
So, all the dwarven rings as well, or just the elven ones?
We will get there in a second.
Okay.
So
the man-made one.
Just
the man.
Just
ring.
wait. The man rings. I will get to that in a second. So I always thought it was so odd that Gandalf didn't Gandalf didn't freak out when he found out that Bilbo had a magic ring. And I also thought it was weird that it took him so long to figure out that it was the one ring. But this kind of explained it. It's like there was actually a bunch of rings made during that.
Well, doesn't he say that? Night. Doesn't he say that? He was like, there's a lot
lots of magic rings
in this world. But it also said that he made it in secret and he made it a faraway place. So maybe not a lot of people even knew what it was.
Well, a bunch of the elven ring, the elves made all of these rings. It doesn't say how many. And then Sauron just had a little bit into each. He just helped a little bit on each one. And then Sauron made his own specific ring. But in my head, when you're first watching the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship, and it has, 3 rings were given to the elves and 7 rings to the dwarves and 9 to it makes it sound like he made all of the rings and he handed them out. Not the case.
So they made them themselves, but he was helping.
Correct.
So, hey, you know what? Maybe that was just a step to his plan of like, if they can't distrust me, they made them. I didn't, do this for them. Like, they made them. I just, helped a little bit, but they can't blame me.
Yeah. Quote, but the elves were not so lightly to be caught. As soon as Sauron set the one ring upon his finger, they were aware of him, and they knew him and perceived that he would be master of them and of all that he wrought. Then, in anger and fear, they took off their rings. So somehow, if they wore their rings at the same time as Sauron, they could feel his presence, but also it seems like they could also sense his ultimate plan to overpower them. Mm-hmm. Which I wonder what that feeling was. The young people might not remember this, but back in the day when people used landlines, especially when you were younger and you were trying to talk to a boy or something, and then all of a sudden you hear this clicking sound and you knew your mom had picked up the phone and was eavesdropping. That's what I imagine it was like. I'm wearing this ring, click.
This line is tapped.
Yes. So as soon as the elves figured out that Sauron was okay, this was a gift with an ulterior motive. They're like, nah, Sauron.
What is that called? There's a term that's a gift. Was an ulterior motive, like you just said, laced with something evil. There's a term for it where it's I gave you this thing. You thought I was nice, but in reality, it was, something for my advantage and would hurt you. There's a term for it.
What is that called? Oh, that's gonna bother me. I mean, there's bowling ball gifts. Have you heard of the bowling ball gift thing? Oh, okay. So there's this Simpsons episode where Homer has this habit of getting Marge gifts that he really wants himself.
Oh.
So it finally the penultimate of it is he buys her a bowling ball, but he already has his name engraved on it. So it's not that exactly, but what a gift of
we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out
on my tongue. Okay. But the minute that they figure these out, they're like, we're through Sauron. I thought we were friends. They took off their rings. I thought these were our friendship rings. And Sauron's like, what? What do you mean? I thought you would want me to spy on you with them. You didn't want that? What? Weird. I didn't know that these could do that. Oh, boy. Oh, my mistake. No. Quote, but he, finding that he was betrayed and that the elves were not deceived, was filled with wrath, and he came against them with open war. Elven smiths could not have attained their making without his lore and counsel. So Sauron's basically pushing a copyright lawsuit here. Like, hey, that was my intellectual property, and I want it back. If you guys aren't going to let me read your minds and control you like I want. Okay.
You guys are jerks.
You guys are jerks. Quote,
oh, it's like, okay, I'm sorry.
Did you figure it out?
No. Well, I tried to look it up, and it said it was a Scroogenomics, which makes me laugh.
I've never heard of that.
But there's a skit show that I really love, and there's a just how you were talking about Sauron reminded me of it, because it was like a mom comforting her like teenage daughter who was upset and crying, and she's like, "What's wrong, honey?" And she's like, this and this happened, and then she hit her face on my backpack. Like she was the bully, like, but how she was explaining it sounded like the other person was like at fault for doing things. She's like, yeah. My favorite is, and then she hit her face on my backpack. But
gifts of unforeseen consequence.
Yeah, I was looking like.
Sorry, that's still bothering me.
Or really an altruistic.
Someone's screaming it at us. Someone's screaming it.
An altruistic gift is in giving an intentional product or service to another person, which is expected to benefit. Oh wait, no. I don't know, guys. What's this called?
What's it called? I can't figure it out.
A strings attached gift?
I don't
know. Anyway.
So Sauron's like going to war at these elves because he wants his rings back because, you couldn't have made them without me. And the elves are like, quote, but the elves fled from him, and 3 of their rings they saved and bore them away and hid them.
Okay, so rings of power, spoilers, not how this goes.
Yeah, not even close. Not even close. Yeah. Not even close.
I mean, he was there. He was there when they were being made.
Right.
But
right.
That's as close as to what they were talking about.
Well, even that isn't even how it's going to go. And I have an analogy that works in my head of how it goes, but I will get to that here in a second. Because I want to tell you what these 3 rings were that they were able to save.
Okay.
Quote, now, these were the 3 that had last been made, and they possessed the greatest powers. Narya, Nenya, and Vilya. They were named the rings of fire and of water and of air, set with ruby and adamant and sapphire.
Ooh, what's adamant?
Yeah. Adamant is... isn't it the one that looks like a crystal?
Galadriel's one? Galadriel.
Yeah, archaic form of a diamond.
What's the word for it?
Adamant.
Adamant.
I find this interesting. Well, adamantium.
True, yeah.
You're welcome.
I was thinking that it meant sky in my head. Adamant, or something. Anyway.
But the fact that there were like multiple rings made, like there could have been like 100 rings made that night or that craft night.
It's a class. It's like a Patreon pottery class.
Yeah. But I always thought it was weird that they chose fire, water, and air. Like, what about like earth or any other elements? But they could have been made, but we just never get to find out because these were the only 3 that they were able to save.
There was, what is it? Earth, water, fire, heart. What is Captain Planet? What is it?
I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
You don't know Captain Planet? Oh my gosh.
Sorry. So these were the 3 rings, and we're going to find out more about them a bit later. But, quote, and of all the elven rings, Sauron most desired to possess them, the 3. For those who had them in their keeping could ward off the decays of time and postpone the weariness of the world.
Whoa.
Which I find the weirdest. Why would Sauron, a Maiar, want to do... Why would he want that specifically? Like, to ward off the decays of time. You're a Maiar. You're a shapeshifter. You can change your looks however you want. Like what decays of time are you worried about? And postponing the weariness of the world, like, does he have depression? Is that the root of all this? Like, he just
he's probably, the orcs probably don't make that great of like friends or listeners. And he tries to talk to them and he's like, it's just been really hard trying to do this all by myself. And they just like grunt at him. And he's like, ugh, you never listen to me.
It makes me think of that part in Sleeping Beauty, which you should always watch movies with subtitles because you miss things. Because I did not realize this until I was older. There was a part with Fauna. Fauna, when she's like, I just don't think Maleficent's very happy.
Yeah, that's my favorite line.
Yes,
that's my favorite line in the whole movie.
Yes, either way, Sauron wanted. Yeah. Sauron wants these 3 rings, but the elves decided to hide them and to never use them or wear them openly while Sauron is around, especially when after the One Ring was made. And like I said, this part always confused me in the movie because it literally paints a picture that Sauron made all these rings and he gave 9 rings to the men and then they turn into Nazgul. And doesn't really explain any after effects to the dwarves after they get it. A bit in the Hobbit movies, but not really. And then the 3 elven rings, like somehow they aren't affected by Sauron using the rings. That part always confused me. And that was probably one of the things that got me really like wanting to read the books. Like, make this make sense. But this part
makes sense.
This part is going to explain it a little.
All right.
Quote, therefore, the 3 remained unsullied, for they were forged by Celebrimbor alone, and the hand of Sauron had never touched them. Yet they also were subject to the One.
Okay, but that was like a little bit more real in the show. Like that happened.
Sure.
That part of Celebrimbor is the one that mostly did all the work.
Right. But Sauron was still there helping, which doesn't apply here. But so here's my analogy of what I interpret this as. So like, here's what I imagine in my head. This is not, what's the word?
Canon.
This is my fan theory.
Canon.
Thank you, not canon. So let's say all the elves had a sleepover to make the craft night with the rings.
Craft weekend.
And, Sauron does take a little part in the making of everyone rings. I'm just going to show you how to do it. Like here, you start off doing this. And as he does these little parts, he adds maybe like evil secret ingredient as he does it. Like, I'm just going to add a little, touch of, glitter here. And the glitter is actually like evil or something. This is in my head, glitter. Guys. Evil glitter. So then let's just say it's getting late and a typical sleepover, there's always the ones that fall asleep first. And then there's a group who just stay up a bit later than everyone else. Abby and I were always the ones who stayed up later and Kylie was always the one who fell asleep first. She also got up earlier and got like all the pancakes first and things.
She did.
She did. So let's just say that Sauron is in the falling asleep first category. So he goes to bed. And then Celebrimbor is in the staying up late category. So while Sauron is asleep, Celebrimbor, on his own, makes the 3 elven rings. Sauron does not add his help or his special evil glitter in the making. But the one problem is that Celebrimbor followed, and I don't have a good word for this, Sauron's, like, let's say, ingredients or recipe. I don't know the proper term.
Follow the cookbook. You didn't follow the recipe.
Yeah. So Celebrimbor followed Sauron's recipe, though.
Ruh-roh.
It's similar to the other rings, but because Sauron never added his evil glitter, we're saying, it doesn't actually turn them into Nazgul-like things.
Oh, so they have the magical properties.
Yes, so it still has a touch of evil to it because he followed the recipe, Sauron's recipe, enough that they can feel his presence when he wears the One Ring.
But they're not in his control.
Correct. Sauron couldn't turn them into the Nazgul things because he didn't add his special ingredient. That's how I understand it. That is how it works in my brain. That's what we're going with. Okay, people?
It didn't have the evil glitter.
Yes. So, anyways, either way, the elves have their 3 special rings left hidden away, and Sauron wants them. So, this is the war.
He knows they exist.
He knows they exist, yes.
Okay.
Because I imagine the next morning, he's like, Celebrimbor's like, look what I made! And Sauron's like, crap.
He's like, wait, what? Wait, what the?
So this is the war that was mentioned in the Akalbath for like a second. And I'm going to do something here that I don't normally do. I just needed more details because I couldn't take Tolkien teasing us twice on this thing. I needed the details. So I'm going to tell you the summary of what happened according to my favorite website, the Encyclopedia of Arda. And then I'll tell you how Tolkien summarized it.
Okay.
So first, Encyclopedia of Arda version. Quote, now he, Sauron, prepared to come against Eregion in open war, and there was little its people could do to ready themselves. I mean, this is me just talking here. Like, they're not known they're known for defending themselves, but this is supposed to be like an artsy, like, community. They're not like a fortress here. So the 3 rings were sent away for safe.
Not a lot of armor.
A lot of craft fairs. So the 3 rings were sent away for safekeeping, with 2 going to Gil-galad in Lindon, while the 3rd, Nenya, was given to Galadriel. Doesn't say where Galadriel is, don't ask me. And then in the Second Age, in 1693, if you want to know, the War of the Elves and Sauron began in earnest, as the forces of the Dark Lord marched out from Mordor against Eregion. The elves of Eregion did not stand alone against Sauron. From Lindon, Gil-galad sent a force, commanded by Elrond, to lend them aid. Before Elrond could come to Eregion, the Dark Lord demanded that the Rings of Power be turned over to him, and when he was refused, he brought his full force against Eregion. So this battle goes on so it goes from 1693 at the beginning. They were now in 1697. So 5 years? No, 4 years. I can tell. I can do math. So 4 years. After 4 years of battle, Eregion fell, with Celebrimbor himself leading a last desperate defense on the steps of the Jewelsmith's Guildhouse. He was taken captive by the orcs, then shot through with orc arrows, and by some accounts, Sauron used Celebrimbor's body as a banner as he turned to face Elrond's army approaching from the north.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Sauron gathered up the Rings of Power that remained and laid waste the land of Eregion, bringing an end to its people. The surviving elves of Eregion seem to have scattered, as we have various accounts of their fates. Some fled northward to join Elrond's host, and that host was itself forced into retreat. Still, other survivors escaped into Khazad-dûm and were granted passage by their friends, the dwarves, coming eventually through the mountains to the woodlands that would long afterward be called Lorien, kind of like the path that the Fellowship took. The dwarves of Khazad-dûm, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm indeed did more than simply allow the elves to pass through their mansions. They went out against Sauron's armies. It was through their aid that the beleaguered Elrond was able to escape into the north and thus save many of the elves of Eregion. Once the dwarves returned to Khazad-dûm, the doors of Durin were shut and remained so until the Fellowship of the Ring came there thousands of years later.
Thousands of years seems insane to me.
Oh, yeah. But I love this detail. Like, it explains so much. Like, I'll get to the Numenorians' involvement probably maybe next episode. And I like to think of the relationship between Elrond and Durin in this. It's not exactly canon. But just the thought that they were friends, and that friendship is what led to this, like, helping out and, you know, alliance that they had. I just love it.
So I know lots of people don't love the Rings of Power show, but I like it. I just love anything Tolkien, so I like it. I'm just taking it for what it's worth and enjoying it. I'm not picking it apart.
Right.
But I really hope they get a lot of story of how Elrond turns into such a, like, soldier warrior person.
Yeah. But
that's my hope.
Okay, Abby, I know how much you love Elrond and Durin. Can you imagine they're in battle and Durin's like, "Go, Elrond, save yourself, save your people, I'll fight him off." And Elrond, like, is all tearing up and he's like, "I love you, my friend," or whatever. And then he, like, leaves with his elves, and then the dwarves, like, are able to retreat to Khazad-dûm, and he's, like, crying as the doors of Durin are shut, and he knows he's not going to see his friend over again.
Don't do this to me.
But can you imagine that scene, though? Like, I love it.
Yes. Or they don't even talk. They just look at each other from across the battlefield.
Oh my gosh, yes. Ugh. Okay, now are you ready to hear how Tolkien described that part?
Okay.
Quote, "From that time, war never ceased between Sauron and the elves, and Eregion was laid waste, and Celebrimbor slain."
Horrifically.
Yeah. Horrifically. And, like, it's not wrong, but, like, you could have given us a bit more. Like,
it's like in Winnie the Pooh, when Winnie the Pooh's like, "I'll have some lunch," and then Rabbit, like, pours him, like, a little drop of honey.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I was hoping for a little more."
A smackerel more.
So that's what I feel like. I feel like Winnie the Pooh and Tolkien is Rabbit, and he's like, "Here you go. I hope you're happy with it." And it's like, actually, though, I would like a little more.
So after all that happened, R.I.P. Celebrimbor.
Oh, so terrible.
Eregion is gone. And I'm not sure exactly which book I heard this in reference to. It could be just fan theory. So imagine Sauron coming up to Celebrimbor and being like, "Where are the 3 elven rings? Give them to me now, or you're dead, or your people are dead." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to tell you. Like, it's more important to me that they, you know, are in good hands than with you." And he, like, they basically described it as, like, them torturing him.
Sad.
To try and get that information. And he never gave in.
Wow. What a hero.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you want to know this information. I know you don't, but other people might. When they say used him as a banner.
Did they, like, fillet him?
Kind of. There's been that I've seen that, and I've also let's just say Vlad the Impaler and then move on. Okay, let's just say that. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Picture painted. Okay, moving on. So Celebrimbor is gone, Eregion is gone, and Sauron gathers up what rings he was able to get. Obviously not the 3 main elven rings he wanted, but still, he's got these other rings.
Does he have a little box that he puts them in, like a little jewelry box?
Yes. Quote, "And he dealt them out to the other people of Middle-earth, hoping thus to bring under his sway all those that desired secret power beyond the measure of their kind."
I really
7
want to
rings.
see that. I want to see him, like, handing them out, like,
And one for
really,
you.
I think we're really bonding. You know what? I feel like we're hitting this part of our relationship that I can give
We're
you.
ready to take the next step.
A friendship ring. Here you go.
There's one meme out there that's like a man about to propose, like, and he has like the ring box behind his back. But it's like Sauron and one of it says like one of the nine or something like that.
Yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting this.
I love it.
Yes,
I will be your friend.
Yes, a million times yes.
So 7 rings he gave to the dwarves, but to men he gave 9. For men proved in this matter, as in other, the readiest to his will. And all those rings that he governed, he perverted, the more easily since he had a part in their making. And they were accursed, and they betrayed in the end all those that used them.
And they turned their fingers green.
Uh-huh.
Like those really bad mood rings.
Yes. So this was really a separate event. Like, it doesn't say how long he took to, regift these 7 rings and 9 rings. And I do find it interesting that he's like, you know what? I'm going to put more of my eggs in the men basket because, yeah, they're suckers.
Yeah. They're pretty dumb.
But like I said, then the elves, when they figured it out, they're like, nope, we're taking this off. But for some reason, the other ones, the dwarves are like, ooh, I like that feeling of Sauron watching me.
Whoa. Is this silver plated? Ugh. Gross. Get it out of here.
Yeah.
That's what the elves did. You can't even be full gold or full silver.
Oh, yeah. Interestingly enough, though, it does explain a bit here what happened with the 7 dwarf rings. Quote, the dwarves indeed proved tough and hard to tame. They ill endure the domination of others, and the thoughts of their hearts are hard to fathom, nor can they be turned to shadows. They use their rings only for the getting of wealth, but wrath and an overmastering greed of gold were kindled in their hearts, of which evil enough after came to the prophet of Sauron.
Oh, that sounds scary.
I find this so fascinating, though, like, because dwarves were made so differently than Valar, Maiar, elves, even the men, because you remember the dwarves were created by Aule, not Iluvatar like everyone else. So Sauron didn't quite understand their mindset as much.
They're made out of rocks and clay.
Yes. Although I was thinking about this, have I mentioned that Sauron originally was one of Aule's Maiar helpers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you think he would have understood them a bit better, but I guess not.
I don't think he showed them to everybody. It was a secret little project.
True. But understanding Aule, understanding Sauron, I don't know. But I also find it interesting that their rings basically caused their greediness of gold, like their dragon sickness.
Oh, interesting.
And basically their greed would cause enough trouble that could only work in Sauron's favor. So I was like, good enough. Like, does it screw them over as a race? Perfect.
Perfect. Now I want to know what the dwarf rings look like.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you. No, it doesn't actually get to tell you. But, quote, it is said that the foundation of each of the 7 hordes of the dwarf kings of old was a golden ring. But all those hordes long ago were plundered, and the dragons devoured them. And of the 7 rings, some were consumed in fire, and some Sauron recovered.
Oh. Huh.
So I'm going to take a sidebar here for just a second because I went down a rabbit hole in this show, if you can't tell.
Just a little.
Just a little. So let's see, how do I start this? It's an interesting idea that in the Hobbit movies, the necromancer, aka Sauron, has Thrain, who is Thorin's dad, imprisoned because he wanted his dwarf ring that was handed down from his father.
Okay.
Right? He's like, it kind of makes sense with this storyline that we're going with now. Like, he wanted all those rings back. But I found out through my rabbit holing that Celebrimbor actually possibly made 4 rings. And this last ring he gave to Durin the Third, which I don't think is the Durin from the show, but I'll just imagine it is because it doesn't hurt my brain as much to think that. So according to what I found, it might not have been as powerful as the 3 elven rings, which would have been like so much cooler, but whatever. But like those rings, Sauron did not make this particular dwarf ring, so it was missing the evil glitter. I went down this rabbit hole of like, well, does that explain why Thror, who was Thorin's grandpa, like, is that explain why he got so like dragon sick? But if he didn't make his ring, then it doesn't make any sense anymore.
Oh.
Right. So that's kind of where my brain was like, oh. So anyways, long story short, the 7 rings that went to the dwarves were a bit of a waste for Sauron because the dwarves were too strong-headed and stubborn to be controlled. Men, on the other hand, quote, men proved easier to ensnare. Those who used the 9 rings became mighty in their day. Kings, sorcerers, and warriors of old. They obtained glory and great wealth. Yet it turned to their undoing. They had, as it seemed, unending life, yet life became unendurable to them. They could walk if they would, unseen by all eyes in this world beneath the sun, and they could see things in worlds invisible to mortal men. But too often, they beheld only the phantoms and delusions of Sauron.
Huh. So they weren't as powerful as all the other ones.
Right.
But they
I
still
like to think of
were
like that's the first batch. We didn't quite figure out the magic part yet.
They were like the rings that like were adjustable so you get in like
yes,
bubblegum.
Yes.
Things.
But I also find it interesting that this is similar to what happens when Frodo puts on the One Ring. Like that perfectly describes like where he could walk unseen, but also he kind of saw these weird like shadowy phantom things. And the delusions of Sauron, how like Frodo kept seeing the eye and like the elevator going up to the eye, and you know all the things.
I wonder if he took all the special powers from every single different ring and put them in the one ring.
Yeah, I could see that too. Quote, and one by one, sooner or later, according to their native strength and to the good or evil of their wills in the beginning, they fell under the thraldom of the ring that they bore, and under the domination of the one, which was Sauron's. And they became forever invisible, save to him that wore the ruling ring. And they entered into the realm of shadows. The Nazgul were they, the Ringwraiths, the enemy's most terrible servants. Darkness went with them, and they cried with the voices of death.
Whoa. So that's what that noise is supposed to be. I mean,
yeah, I like that
terrifying.
Too. Yeah, it is terrifying. Yeah. It's okay,
so,
death, sure.
So is that why when Frodo puts on the ring, he can see them as men again?
Yes.
But they still have bodies when they're like Nazgul, like...
Right. I don't know how to explain that part because it's, I mean, but if you think of like the fight scene with, in The Hobbit, you could stab them, but then they just kind of were misty too.
Maybe it's them being in the darkness so long that they just like don't have that physical
maybe
body anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot not known about the Ringwraiths, unfortunately, and so that's actually where I'm going to leave you today. Wondering about the Ringwraiths.
Oh, just dreaming about them Ringwraiths.
Yeah, but their cries of the voices of death.
Whoa.
Not terrifying at all.
What are the dragony things they ride on. I thought that's what they were called, but I'm wrong.
Well, he does, like, no one comes between the Nazgul and their prey or whatever. Like, they call that a Nazgul, too. I don't know.
They're just a pair.
Yeah. We are one.
Yes. Well, thank you for teaching me today.
You're welcome. So please follow us on Instagram at Sisters of the Shire Podcast. You guys have been amazing with the comments lately and answering my random questions. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And thank you guys for keeping it civil, too. I know you guys can be real jerks. And you guys there's opinions out there, yes. But, everyone's being nice. I appreciate it. If you are ever on Spotify, I do ask, I have polls and I have random questions that I ask. Most of the questions are like, how are we doing as a podcast? Feel free to answer. That's totally fine too. But one of the questions I put, I think we talked about it last week, is like, who would you cast as the pretty Sauron that was supposed to be so like pretty and beguiling that, basically everyone would do what he wants. So who would you cast that, like in Hollywood or something? And one guy wrote, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Or one person wrote, Danny DeVito.
He's like so short. See, I already have a choice. I already have someone in my head. I have two people actually. But what's a bummer is that he's already in the Tolkien universe, which I'm like, is Lee Pace, who plays Legolas' dad. Sure. Because, he is gorgeous. Second,
and he'd be a good Anatar, too.
Second, or just like a god, like one of the Valar. I think that'd be really cool. Anyway, and then my second choice
would be good for him.
Was he is in Downton Abbey. Matthew Good. He's in Downton Abbey. He's in
The Beast, in the live action Beast, Beauty and the Beast.
No, that's Matthew in Downton Abbey.
That's where the Matthew came from.
Actor's real name is Matthew. He's the darker haired guy at the very end, who is with Mary after Matthew.
Oh, he's in Leap Year and in Discovery of Witches.
That guy.
Oh, yeah. I can see that. But I can't see him with long hair. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
Maybe he doesn't have long hair. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's why I feel like, ooh, something new.
New style.
So anyways, thank you for answering our questions. You can become a patron and join our Patreon at patreon.com/Sisters of the Shire. You can join our friends, a dwarf friend, Dan, and our elf friends, Chrishane and Tom. Thank you so much for your support.
We're so really grateful, appreciate you guys.
We are super grateful. We really appreciate it. Please rate us on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. You guys, we have over 10,000 plays now. Woo-hoo!
Whoa. That's amazing.
And no new countries, but breaking news. Shots have been fired.
Oh, global domination?
Well, you know, there was that ongoing feud between UK and Australia, and I know they don't get along already. They were tied for quite a while, and it seems like we have a victor. Unless Australia wants to do something about it, because UK is now in third. Not sure how you guys feel about that, Australia.
Come on, Australia. I know you guys are scrappy. You can do this.
Stick your spiders on them.
Yeah. One of the many scary venomous things you have in your country.
Yes, seriously. And also Portugal. I don't know who's binging right now in Portugal, but like they went from like, usually when people start out, they're like at the very bottom of the list. Well, they started out, like I saw them at 27th and now they're up to 22. So, I mean, get it, Portugal.
Whoa. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And
thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today. And I've been Abby.
And I've been Ashley.
And this has been the Sisters of the Shire podcast. We're so grateful you're here. We hope you will join us next time. Bye.
Bye.